Hello, this is my first video for the freshmen of this year. Today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 2020. It's our second day of our sequestering, our hiatus, however you want to call it. I thought a lot about what kind of video extra I might do. This is totally my own decision. I used to do videos in the past for my students, and then I stopped for a little while. And I thought, since freshmen, we were working on Shakespeare, and we've already gone through Act 1, that I might just continue on based on where we had sort of left off. So that's what I'm going to start doing. So what materials you'll need, you can find those on Google Classroom. There's a handout for the famous lines that we were using before we got out of school, and I would encourage you to sort of look through those from time to time. It's kind of fun to see which lines pop up that you're reading along and, oh yeah, this was one of those lines that was on that sheet. So you can access that in Google Classroom. And the scene chart, that was the piece of paper, you divide it into 5 columns. You should have that as well, and you can take notes for yourself. This is not required. You do not need to worry about getting a grade, but I know that when I have done my own studies of Shakespeare plays, I found this very helpful so that I can look back and see which things happen in which parts of the play. I also included in the Google Classroom, in the materials section, a couple of links that you might find useful. There's a copy of the Shakespeare text as it is written, so you can go and look at that. There's also a translation. It's the No Sweat Shakespeare site. And I think you might find the modern translation really interesting to read, but it's not like the one that we were reading in class, because instead of it being side by side and each line is translated, the people have put together a more narrative style, and so you can sort of read it more like a story. So there's sometimes information about how a character might look or what they see in the room. So there's a bit of an interpretation there, but you might like it, and it's very readable. So check those links out. And then the last one I included is just basically for fun, and that is the Anne Hathaway cottage, which was Shakespeare's wife, as you remember, Anne Hathaway. And it is an area that you can go and tour if you ever end up in England someday. Of course, it's currently closed, but they have beautiful gardens, and they have this lovely old house from the 1600s, and you can walk around and get kind of goosebumpy when you're in there. It's one of my favorite places. Okay, so where are we? We want to think about the big ideas of what's happening with the characters in the play. What are motivating factors? So characters that I find intriguing, of course, we have our main character, Hamlet. What motivates him to act or not to act? There were some students at the end of our reading of Act 1 who realized that Hamlet's father's ghost is saying, "Avenge my death. What are you going to do about it?" And some students were like, "Yeah, go get him. Go get King Claudius." But he doesn't right away. So you might consider, like, well, why not? Other characters to think about are also Polonius. See what his motivations are, and because he's kind of an interesting character. And when you're thinking about motivation, are you thinking about internal antagonists, for instance, like what's driving Hamlet inside of him, and external antagonists too? And another question I have for you to consider, of course you don't need to write any of this down, but think about it. We think of dynamic characters as characters who change somehow in the beginning to the end. Do you think that Hamlet is going to be a character who goes through some sort of inner transformation? Or if not, does anyone? Or is it us as the audience who go through some sort of transformation? Those are some bigger questions that you can think about as you go forward and do some more reading. To review Act 1, I have this little note for myself to remind you. You might want to do little bullet points in your scene chart to help you remember where things are. There is an interesting line at the end, it's in the famous lines, and I would encourage you to go back to Act 1, Scene 5, lines 204 to 212. The time is out of joint, oh cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right. Why is Hamlet saying this? What's his motivation? I think this line is kind of interesting too for our current time period. It does sort of feel like time is out of joint. Things are very strange right now, but we pick ourselves up and keep moving forward. So looking ahead to, we've got Polonius coming up in Act 1 is going to be doing a lot of interesting things. I have notes that I should be looking at. What is he up to? What motivates him? He tells Reynaldo to do something, and he does some plotting with King Claudius. Would you want Polonius as your father? This would be curious. And then on that regard, would you want King Claudius as your stepfather? And we meet two new characters, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They are friends of Hamlet's, and King Claudius has asked them to come back because Hamlet's been so morose and dark and dreary. So he's hoping that maybe they'll help out. And at the end, at the end of Act 2, there's another famous line, "The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." So think about that when you get to the end of Act 2. What is it that Hamlet is trying to accomplish? Or what is he plotting and thinking about? I think I'm trying to keep these down to 5. I haven't done this in a while. We're at 6 minutes. I believe that that is all I'm going to cover right now, but look forward to a few more videos. And maybe not every day. I might switch between AP and freshman. But if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to turn the comments on. Please keep them school appropriate and positive. Miss you guys. Have a great day. Have a nice couple of days ahead. Take care.